We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, the Bidjigal and Gadigal peoples of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome to On Air Snack Bar, the podcast where we take you inside the world of entertainment with interviews from your favourite stars, creators and industry icons in Australia. I'm Simon Brooke Mclachlan, your host for all things film and TV. This is On Air Snack Bar. Well, that's right, folks. This is the On Air Snack Bar. I'm your host, Simon Brooke Mclachlan, and if the 5 minutes that this guest and I have had off camera is any indication of what today's chat is going to be, it's going to be very, very funny. I am joined by the incredibly hilarious Mr. Charles Firth. Hello, sir. How are you?
Thank you for lowering everyone's expectations.
That's
about
right.
me,
I
Simon.
put the bench really low.
Yeah, that's great. So now, if it's not funny, anyway, never
We're off
mind.
to a good start.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Now, let's...
So just before we
No, please.
go,
Yeah,
are we allowed? Is that decoration?
it's just a
that
prop,
fruit?
yeah.
So
No,
are
you can eat
are we
it. I'm
allowed to
kidding.
eat it?
Go. Which one
Does
first?
Is it real?
Yeah.
Oh,
You want some?
oh yeah. Has that been there all day? 'Cause it feels a little bit warm.
From yesterday.
From yesterday, right? Okay.
It was in the fridge, though, after we shot in Melbourne last week. So
I think you got about 20 minutes before
Straight
we
to
need
the
a
loo?
little- Yeah.
for a fatberg.
Yeah.
Let's talk
that-
about fatbergs because that was our chat off camera,
We're
right?
going to have to talk about fatbergs, aren't we?
Because we don't want to cancel Bryan Adams if he comes to Sydney, right?
No, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And the news today is that Bryan Adams has had to cancel his concert in
Mm-hmm.
Perth because there's a fatberg in the sewer system. And does everyone know what a fatberg is?
I just learned from you. Do you want to explain it to them?
So a fatberg is when, because everyone puts shit down the toilet, obviously.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
And that's good. That's what you
That's
should
what
do,
it's
right?
for, right?
But they also put things like oil, like they tip oil down there and grease, and also like baby wipes and stuff like that. And you're not supposed to put any of that down.
Sanitary products are big no-no as well. That's yes.
And so what happens in the sewer over time is these icebergs of fat. Called fatberg. What does this keep going? Oh, it's people just contacting me about the fatberg. Yeah, they know it's big news.
The
everywhere.
conservation plan for what you got.
No. So this huge fatberg builds up and it clogs the sewer system, and so they can't hold the Bryan Adams concert because if everyone goes to that one place and tries to shit in the stadium. It'll that's it. That's it. It's over. They won't be able to handle it. And the reason why I'm so fascinated in fatbergs, like they're sort of close to my heart, is that when there was a fatberg in Sydney back in 2017,
and you covered
remember?
this, didn't you? Yes, and you
Good
covered
times.
this when you.
Yeah.
It's a good year, 2017.
Yeah.
The fatberg
Great
was
year
on
for
point.
Fatbergs,
Yeah.
I covered it for Triple M.
Yes.
And we went down. I went down there and saw the sewer and talked to them about fatbergs, and I saw the fatberg. It was amazing.
Oh, the fatbergs. This is how we got from Bryan Adams to fatbergs to this. And this is how I felt last night because I started binging your new show Optics last night.
Oh, lovely.
And it was funny. I talked with the crew about this, about new shows. Sometimes you take a while to warm into it. And I must have taken all of, I'm going to say 4.5, 5 minutes. Right. First few minutes I was like, okay, the girls talk fast.
Yes.
You came in, it was straight in the board meeting. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. And then at about that 5 minute mark, I thought, I get it.
Yes.
And then I could not turn away because it was this very slow and painful train wreck that just kept getting worse and worse. And then you're at the chapel and Shingo's there as the priest and you're saying things about priests, and there's the footballer and the priest outfit. And you came into one meeting, you said, let's do the double D approach. And I was like,
yes.
And you're there with Kate Walsh, and then the girls said, your character, Ian Randall, they said, his presence is an assault.
We get assaulted every day.
I thought that just sums it up so well. But it was brilliant. Like, you must be happy with how it's gone so far.
Well, it's lovely having a character where, because it's funny, because all the people who know me, right, like sort of like parents of my kids and stuff like that, who you sort of vaguely know, but they're not really your friends, right?
Yeah.
You just sort
and
of...
the kind of
They've been coming up to me the last few weeks and just while it's been on air, and they've just been going, "Oh my God, you're so Ian. That's you. You're just playing yourself." You're
going, the next how much of a deviation is Ian from Charles?
Ian's a total loser. Like his bosses are 29-year-old women. Not that there's anything wrong with, younger women running things. But he gets rings around, and he said he cannot say the right thing at any time. He turns up to a funeral and
wants it as a PR stunt. So tries to bribe the priest? Can I get some airtime? He go, no, it's just family. It's like, no, cut them down to half it. I'll jump up on them.
And I love the scene where my assistant Cody tries to bribe the priest to get the speech, and it's like. So how many famine kids will it cost to get some Ian some airtime?
It's just so bad.
Do you want me to PID you or the church?
Yeah. It was just like a bigger and deeper hole every time. And I must say, we were trying to get the girls in the studio. We might get them in later in the season as well, which would be fantastic. But how did... so it's Vic and Jenna and yourself. So you're the three writers of the show. This is Optics, by the way, which is on ABC iView. So 28th of Jan, I think it came out.
Yep.
And is it going to be one ep per week releasing, or is it all available at once?
It's all to binge.
Yeah, okay.
But if you're old... Like me, and
you have to wait till next Tuesday at 7:30.
Wednesday at 8:30.
Okay.
It does go to air on this thing called free to air television. I had to actually explain to my 14-year-old that because we'd plugged in an antenna into the TV, and he'd go, "What is this cord?"
What's that coat hanger looking thing?
I said because we're going to watch this show, my show at 8:30 on Wednesday, and he goes. So wait a minute, does that mean we're watching it through iView, but it's only available at iView at 8:30? He said, no. There's this other thing called an antenna. And then he just before the party began, like we invited some friends around to watch it.
Yeah.
He took the antenna out because he went, that's a stupid way of watching television.
We've got broadband, Dad.
Just watch it when they arrive.
We can do it at 8:25 even. Not have to wait till 8:30.
It's not the same, mate.
It's the same kid who's never wound up a window, right?
Yeah, exactly. That whole thing,
any of those expressions, just no idea what it's about.
So, and in some ways, that's what the show is about, right? Which is, I don't understand anything that the girls, and they're called the girls. Like I know it's sort of sexist to say the girls, but that's the whole point.
That was one of the lines. They're trying to practice, and you say, "Ladies and gentlemen," she says, "Well, that sounds binary."
Yeah, I know.
And poor Ian can't win. I would have made the same mistake.
So, but the point is, it's just everything's lost in translation. Like I think that everything's about free-to-air television and broadband and broadcast and print and everything.
Yeah.
And they're all TikTok and Snapchat and Snap Maps and all this stuff. And the whole conflict is that we both think that we're right, but actually both of us. I'd like to think my character has some wisdom to teach them.
There was that good turning point when the girls were all of a sudden stuck in a rut because the client, the Hannah character, which is Kate Walsh, kind of pulled the rug and there was a lot more issues with her case. And all of a sudden they reached out to you, and I think you had some witty comeback like, "Oh, maybe you should have asked me," or something along those lines.
Like, it was like, because they go, "What would you do?" And it's like, "Oh, sorry, not allowed to talk."
That's right, because they kicked you out to the office. So what's the dynamic with you and the girls? Like it seems very, and I've watched like sort of the outtakes and the skits you do and the sketches on your Instagram page, which are very funny. Sort of half in character, half out, and you can see when people break, crack, and we
had great fun.
It must be good. Like it's
Well, the good thing is, so I've known Vic and Jenna for years, right? Like in actual fact, the first time I saw them live, they just stopped uni and they put on this show, and they packed and they invited everyone personally. So they had like 300 people in the crowd, all invited personally, and it was like, there's no. What are you doing? Like, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and it was just this random thing that they'd self-produced and put on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so. And so I said, well, you should come on tour with us because we go around the country and do live show tours. And so
which show is this though? You mean with
So these were like War on 2018, War on 2019.
Yes, yep.
And so we'd been touring for the last couple of years, just occasionally, and really enjoying each other's sort of comedy. And then the pandemic hit, because we won't go there, but
it's for the After Hours episode.
Yeah, that's right. That's for the
bring your certificate.
The pandemic hit, and thank God it did. Yeah. Thank God they organised it because
good timing.
Because we couldn't go on a live tour, and so Screen Australia, God bless their hearts, gave us some money to basically do the sketches,
kind of go digital.
War on 2020 sketches. Yeah. And one of those sketches was the Contact Tracy sketch, where they played two Gen Z characters, and both called Tracy, and and James Schleffel and I, who do a lot of stuff together, played these 40-year-old men who were trying to run the contact tracing things.
The old generation sort of thing,
And they ran rings around us by sort of using their snap maps and the fact that everyone sort of broadcast, their Instagram and everything like that to be able to contact trace everyone that they needed to do, ran rings around us. And that went globally viral, that sketch.
Right.
And it was like, that got us thinking. Like
that's the match of
that intergenerational conflict where the mediocre white men get completely flummoxed by these brilliant young women.
Well, then you've captured both your audiences, right? You've got the young Gen Zers who get the joke at your expense and vice versa, the ones who are trying to catch up and get it at their expense.
Yes. We had to explain to the ABC what a young person was. But as soon as they understood, it was great.
At least they gave you some money. You did it right. Yeah. Oh, that's good. So that's kind of where the concept, so that was the dynamic of the characters. And then how did it lend itself from that into this whole element of kind of PR and managing celebrities and politicians? Because that's more the subject matter of the show, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I'd always wanted to, like, for decades, I'd wanted to do something in this sort of space. Like the idea, I did a live show in about 2016 called Spin, which is all about political spin. But there's so much more than just politics. There's corporate spin and celebrity spin, and that sort of touched on all our interests. Like we all knew of stories in that sort of PR space. In some ways, there's some of the most powerful people in the world because they're actually playing with and scripting the way we think about things. And actually, as we've researched this, it's become more and more apparent that, wow, the dark art of spin is used in so many, like far more than you'd expect. And we've had all these lunches with people where you're just going, these people are evil. But then the other, but the reason why I'd wanted to do it for years, right, was I'd always had this idea that because I grew up watching this show called The Goodies. I don't expect anyone's old enough to remember The Goodies. Oh, yeah.
Oh, we got a thumbs up. Person. Okay. Oh, good.
The 98-year-old soundo heard of The Goodies.
It's a bit hard of hearing as well.
Yeah. He can't hear, don't worry.
Diversity high,
but The Goodies was Tim Brooke Taylor, Graham Garden, Bill Oddie. It was sort of like same era as the Monty Python people.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had this sitcom that was it went for years on ABC, and they played people who were the goodies. They did good things, and each episode they did a different good task. And I always wanted to flip that and do a show where the baddies, like, and sort of that, and that's in modern life. That's what the crisis PR is.
But when you do see it in the show and they break down the techniques they're using and, like you said, the degree of manipulation, which is funny because it's a funny show, but then you think about it, this is really happening.
Yes.
I remember reading it, like you and the girls apparently did a lot of research with how these agencies do work and how the PR does happen. You're like, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
With your NRL players, your politicians, your celebrities, yeah.
Oh, and absolutely such funny research methods because we had to have long lunches, right? We had to have long lunches with all these evil people, and they're great because their whole art is to have long lunches with people and
and
chat people, to manipulate people, right? So the best PR outcomes for these crisis PR managements is if their stories are never told, right? Like, say you've got a faulty product that kills people. The last thing you want is for that to come out. So if you successfully manage to cover that up somehow, you can never tell that tale, but you can tell it to some comedians who are doing deep research on a setup. So they had amazing stories of complete evil and there was a real dissonance and disconnect about just how bad they were. I can tell you one story, but it's quite disturbing. I don't know whether I should. But
the way we started the show, it's not going to make much of a difference.
But the NRL, well, I'll sanitize
we'll
a little
say
bit.
Fatberg is the safe word, all right? So Fatberg.
Yeah, just say Fatberg if I need to stop it. That whole NRL plot line is not like there's a real, parallel to real stuff there, which is there is horse trading that goes on both at the AFL and NRL level, where if a player does something really quite heinous to a person, usually a woman, there will be horse trading. Like whether that network holds the rights to that. To the footy or whatever, counts. Like, we can go hard on an NRL player because we don't own the rights.
Right,
Thinks Channel 7 or whatever. But then, what do you do? How do you shut up the TV station that doesn't own the rights? Well, the answer is there's sort of you can't officially do anything if you're the NRL or the AFL. Yeah. So you hire a crisis PR management firm to do it off the books and go, I'll tell you what, we can't give you anything, but it might just happen that your junior sports reporter manages to get exclusive interviews with X, Y, and Z if this story never makes it to the front page or it never makes it to the 6 o'clock bulletin.
And that's exactly like the scene you had over the sushi
that was based on real and quite uncomfortable sort of.
It's funny because you're clever in like I remember watching House of Cards, the American one, and that was very clever at also paralleling events that were happening in Congress at the time. Yes. And everyone's like, I can see the link with who they're, without so much doing it and being too obvious about it. And I guess yours is similar. You're pulling current ideas because you're only a smidge behind real time with your production. Like you shot that when?
We shot it in August. So,
right, so 6 months at most. Yes. By the time it airs and edits, And
what was fascinating is we were ahead of the curve on the Qantas stuff because we didn't even know about Joe Alston. Joe Alston wrote this book, which I think was released in like October, about the Qantas Chairman's Lounge. We've got this episode that's all about the Qantas Chairman's Lounge and how valuable it is. Oh, sorry, the Qualitas Chairman's Lounge is what it's called. Or the Qualitas Captain's Lounge. But the whole point is that we showed that because everyone wants an invitation to this Chairman's Lounge.
Elite kind of,
this elite thing, this club, right? It just gives this airline enormous say over public policy. And it's so funny, 3 days before Optics went to air, all the people – so in our show, the plot line is that the ACCC, the regulator of the airlines, basically gets blackmailed into not doing anything about all the bad behaviour by the airline because they threaten him with having his Chairman's Lounge invitation revoked. And 3 days before our show went to air, the ACCC senior management all resigned from the Qantas Chairman's Lounge. Now, I have it on good authority. I'm not allowed to I have it on good authority that the reason why they did that is they'd seen the preview tapes of our episode 3, and they gone, we don't want to be part of this shitstorm. Like I'm claiming that as a scalp for Optics. It'll be our first, but not our last.
Making an impact on the real world. Now that we've walked away from our Qantas Chairman's Lounge, which is a good experience, tell me about. I mean, you're quite prolific. Like we've gone everything from the Chaser, the Wankonomics, the live touring, Optics with the girls. I mean. You've kind of carved a niche in this sort of satire sort of realm. I mean, arts is hard. You've got to keep busy and you're always hustling. What really keeps you motivated with these ideas and to kind of keep digging and keep creating? I mean, you said the show for the Optics came out of the girls with this skit that just blew up, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Is it just, have you just got constant ideas happening? What's the process for you?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think part of it is you just got to keep going. Like, you can't fail if what you're doing is stuff that's good and interesting, right? Like, I mean, it may be that it doesn't gain an audience, or you know, you don't have as much resources as you'd like to do something.
Sure,
but you can always, like, if you constantly sort of you can only fail by stopping doing,
just not doing it. Yes.
Yeah. And I think actually the actual key to it, and I've done a lot of thinking about this over the last few years, is sort of realising that I think the reason why I just kept with it, even, you know, because even early on, there were years where I was making no money. Like we're talking, I had a tax return about 2 years after I started university and just before the Chaser took off, like literally the year before the Chaser took off, where I earned $6,000
in a financial year.
In a financial year. I mean, luckily I was staying in my family home at the time, so I didn't have to pay
But it
rent.
hurts. I've had those. So you sit with the accountant, they tally it up and you look at the figure like, that's it? Like, I busted my ass this year and that's it?
But to add insult to injury, the government actually then sent me a cheque for like, I don't know, $400 or something, saying you're really poor. It was like it was this sort of tax refund. Even though I hadn't paid any tax, I got like a POVO refund. and so, but I think and then you know, after I had lots of, you know, we had lots of TV shows and things like that, but then there was this sort of fallow period for many years after that where I sort of, you know, like I was doing really interesting stuff and really enjoying my work, but it wasn't gaining huge audiences or whatever. And you realise actually, if what you're doing, and I realised the reason why I persisted all the way through was because actually I think the reason why I do this is because I really enjoy laughing. Yeah. Right? Like, I enjoy making myself laugh. Like I really enjoy writing comedy because I laugh at my own jokes. Like all my friends will tell you, like, I just laugh at my own. Like, they'll hear me reading my stuff,
and you can hear it happening.
Yeah, terrible. But also, I really enjoy laughing at other people's jokes. So working with people who make you laugh, and all my fondest memories of work are in writers' rooms where you're reading out your material and you just
the mass hysteria.
And then also finding extra jokes. Like the best jokes are always ones where there's a sort of meeting of minds and you, even with the optic scripts, there's so many jokes where it's like, I remember writing that joke and how we got to that, you know, those leaps of thought. So I think the point was I wasn't doing it to be successful. I was doing it to make myself laugh because I enjoy laughing. And so that gave me a sort of persistence that meant that I couldn't fail in a way as long as
because you're enjoying you. Yeah.
And so and then I suppose my advice out of that is, even though from a brain science level it should be the case. And, you know, I was always taught very early on, the mentors that we had in our 20s always said, just do one project and concentrate on one project. And then after that project, start the next project, right? And they were totally wrong. Because I did do that. I followed that advice for a while. And you end up in the arts in Australia doesn't have enough money to resource people doing one project and then going, oh, well, what's my next project?
Sure.
You actually have to have things on the boil.
All the irons in the fire going and that contact and that's bubbling away and that's been 2 years in the works and this is a fresh year. Yeah.
And the problem is, you know, you've just got to – and then if things explode all at the same time, you just have to fucking deal with it. You just have to cope, you know, like and
well,
that's
good problem to have, right?
Yeah, good problem to have, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's – But beyond that, I think there's a huge problem in Australia, which is it's not resourced nearly as well as it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Even worse than it was 20 years ago. And it's fucking appalling compared to what it was 40 or 50 years ago. Like, it's not even comparable. Like, it's so outrageous that we've allowed the arts in Australia to sort of be placed into this tiny little thing. And there's lots of green shoots, and like I'm not in any way complaining. Like, I'm complaining on behalf of other people. Like, I'm very happy, but you know, like the ABC just should be triple what it is. Like, and there's just been constant attacks on that. Screen Australia does such an extraordinary job with such a small budget that it's very cool that it I think it's one of the most impressive arts organisations in the world.
Well, every time you watch a new episode or series, opening credits, Screen Australia. Thanks to Screen Australia.
They're always there, and they've got the producers back as well. Yeah. Like, they're not the same as a public broadcaster. Yeah. They're there to make sure that the industry is sustainable over the long term. So they're good institutions, definitely deserve more funding. Yeah. But beyond that, you've got the streamers and things like that. They are great. And I was talking to a person who runs Stan the other day, and she was saying she has to commission 34 Australian things
kind of
per year.
Projects or works.
Which is a lot. Like, that is good news for the industry. Yeah. The problem is every streamer will be asking, well, what's your co-financing deal? What's the American angle on this? Or what's the British angle on this? And so the ability to tell uniquely Australian stories and produce stuff just for Australia it has fallen, unfortunately, solely to the ABC, which has then also been cut. So,
because I don't think the converse is true, right? You wouldn't think in the States and the UK, when they're making their content, they're thinking, how will this appeal to the Australians? They're making local content. They know that Australians will love it.
Yeah, and look, I think it's been a good pressure on the local industry to think more ambitiously. Yeah. Like, it means, if we make this a more universal tale, it'll travel and blah, blah, blah. But not everything's like that. Like, if you're wanting to do a send up about Qantas or Optus or, and tell a tale that's specific to the Australian experience.
That they will get.
Yeah, that they will get. Then you really, it's just a pity that there's not more resources.
And you said when the content is so good and the hunger for it.
Yes. Yeah. And also, and I was talking to one of your producers earlier. One of the fascinating things is there is so much good feeder theatre and like the Adelaide Fringe Festival is literally the second biggest fringe festival in the world. Like, we've got Edinburgh, which is the biggest and oldest and is extraordinary. But Adelaide is up there. Like, Adelaide is really top quality, world class fringe festival. And you've got, for comedians, you've got the Melbourne Comedy Festival, which is also a really world class thing. But where else do you go? Like, there's half a dozen good theatres in each capital city. Yeah. But, it's just like the answer becomes, you go to Hollywood, or you go to New York, Broadway, or you go to West End, you go to Sydney, you go to Crow's Nest, or you go to...
Well, speaking of kind of breakouts, like, you mapped out your journey, you said you had those really dud couple of years before the Chaser took off. Would you say Chaser was probably the one that really kind of got you out there on the map and started the snowball for where we're at today?
Yeah. And to clarify, like, the Chaser took about 5 years to be an overnight success. Like,
it's just a really long night.
It was, exactly. But we started doing it in 1999, and it was a newspaper. And a website. And I programmed the website. Like, it was such a weird sort of... And there was literally 2 years
Which was also early days of internet too.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
very ahead of your time.
We rode the internet.com bubble.
Yes.
In fact, shortly before the .com bubble burst, we were offered $1 million for the Chaser.
Really?
To sell it to some publisher. And then literally about 6 months later, the .com bubble had burst.
All went,
And we got to go and inhabit the company went bust.
Yeah.
They had offered us $1 million. But we said, can we borrow your veryschmick.com offices?
They're just a cave now, an empty.
Yeah. During because it was, they were down in Melbourne and it was during the Melbourne Comedy Festival. Mm-hmm. We want to produce our newspaper out of your, corpse.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. We got to do it. So, so we went through a lot. But, so the 2 years where it was very struggling was doing the chaser, but before the chase, anyone really knew about it. Yeah.
And then, we were talking about the time when you're in the States and, Firth does USA, this, that, the other. You guys were known very much for pushing the limits and taking satire and putting uncomfortable situations. Any kind of situations pop to mind where you're like, we were so close to going too far? You think of those scenes in Borat when he was in the States and doing certain things and you're like, you're almost in danger here. It's funny in hindsight.
Well, it's interesting because the obvious one is the Apex stunt.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny. If you look at the risk assessment forms for that, one of the possibilities that we noted down for that stunt was that Chaz, who dressed up as Osama bin Laden and who pulled up outside George W. Bush's hotel, when he got out of the limousine, that he'd be assassinated by a sharpshooter, right? Oh. And we've talked to people who were on the roofs doing that.
And he's seen this before he's got out of the car, knowing this isn't...
Knowing that's a distinct possibility. And
just make sure the cameras are rolling. Right?
It was so... I wasn't in the room at the time, but I think one of the lawyers came down and said, now, this is one of the risks that Chaz will be murdered. And apparently Julian said, that is a risk we're prepared to take.
We're prepared to take.
But so that was...
He wasn't, fortunately, but yeah.
And I think actually, so that was one time. But the other, there was several times when I was in the US where we were told by the Secret Service, you have to leave the state now.
In that real firm America, where these guys aren't screwing around. They're serious when it's time to go.
So when I did Hillary Clinton, I went and applied to be an intern for Hillary Clinton. Yeah. And I showed her these sexy photos of me semi-naked and handed her a cigar and said, which was, tasteful. Anyway, and the thing is, so the divisions of police forces there is quite interesting. I have been told to leave the state quite a lot of times.
I'm surprised you're not blacklisted. You can't go back. Visa denied.
Because I did one at Jerry Falwell's at Liberty University in front of 10 million, it was a live broadcast of 10 million people. And I got up. And Jerry Falwell was this very homophobic pastor who preached intolerance. Like he said, everyone should be more intolerant. Yeah. And so I got up and said, I'm intolerant of you or something. It was funny. And then I just got manhandled and
straight out of
there. And then they said, look, either you can leave the state now and you got to hand over your footage, which is such a
then that makes none of it's worthwhile.
We can take you to the hospital. And it was like, fuck. Okay. And so
that's a rock and a hard place, right?
And it was 3 a.m. Sydney time. We had no access to lawyers on the Sydney. We didn't think it was going to be that bad. And actually, what I'm really sorry about is we were using Borat's camera guy for that stunt. We'd actually hired him specifically because we thought, well, he'll know how to sneak footage out of a, tough situation.
Sure, yeah.
Because during the Apex stunt, our camera guys just stuck the stuff up their bums, like the little computer chips up their bums. That's it. And
that was a big cassette tape for that.
Stay there in jail, because they'd been detained, and it was like, okay, better not shit until we get out. But I got banned for life from Libertyville in Virginia. For that one. But the one that I was talking about with Hillary Clinton was the Secret Service comes up afterwards and they said, look, we don't care that you've done this. Our job is not to be political. You've embarrassed Hillary Clinton. Good on you. The thing is, the state troopers have a very different sort of thing. They are pissed, right? And they will find some charge to get you with.
So get out while you can.
You leave right now, and our strong advice is do not stop until you're across state lines. So.
Well, the good thing is you got out. So, Chase was very funny. Optics is the one. We've got to wrap up in a sec.
Yes,
but,
it's
on ABC iView, which is fantastic. What's next? Any chance for season 2 or another project coming up?
Well, it's fingers crossed on season 2.
I'm available. We can write a character for me, please. So,
you've got to watch Optics, and then it'll get a season 2.
It's very funny. So do check it out. It's and you and the girls have done a fantastic job, and it's hilarious. Yes. And I think, like I said, everything you've done over the years has led you to this point, and I congratulate you. I take my hat off to you with the just prolificness and motivation. It's very impressive. It's good to see homegrown talent doing well, creating good content, and it getting the recognition it deserves. So.
Thanks, Simon.
Thank you very much for being here on the show. This is the On Air Snack Bar. We've had Charles Firth with us today. I am Simon Brooke Mclachlan. We will see you for our next episode very soon. Until then, keep on snacking. You want some fruit?
Yes.
Yes. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode, but subscribe on YouTube and follow the On Air Snack Bar channels on Spotify, Audible, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, to stay tuned for all the latest updates. We will be back next week with more exclusive interviews from the world of Australian film and television. But until then, keep on snacking.